Have you ever met a woman who is incredibly kind, but impossible to truly get close to? The one who listens for hours, remembers every detail of your problems, shows up when things fall apart, but never once mentions her own pain. She laughs at the hard stuff. She seems fine, genuinely fine, and somehow that makes her even harder to read. You might think she's just private, or strong, or one of those people who doesn't need much. But psychology says something different. Her brain isn't running on the same frequency as everyone else's. And that's not a metaphor. That's a measurable shift in how her nervous system processes the world, what it scans for, what it prioritizes, what it learned to protect against. This isn't about being guarded or closed off. It's about what happens to a woman's mind after it survives too much. These patterns aren't personality quirks. They're psychological fingerprints left behind by endurance. Start with the brain itself, because that's where everything begins. When a woman goes through prolonged stress or trauma, her brain doesn't break, it trains. The threat detection system, the emotional processing, the way she reads people and situations, all of it gets reorganized around one core objective: survival. And survival, once it becomes the brain's primary job, changes everything downstream. So when someone cuts her off in traffic, she doesn't spiral into road rage. She's already 3 steps ahead, wondering what's going on in that person's day, almost instinctively extending the kind of grace she probably had to learn to give herself first. Other people's chaos registers differently when you've already lived through your own. Minor turbulence doesn't shake her the way it shakes everyone else because her nervous system has a very different reference point for what bad actually means. But the shift goes deeper than just staying calm under pressure. She walks into a room and doesn't just see people. She reads the emotional temperature of the entire space almost immediately. She can tell when the silence is comfortable versus when it's heavy. She catches the difference between tired and sad. She notices the forced smile, the slight shift in someone's tone, the way a person's shoulders tighten before they say, "I'm fine." She noticed all of it, and she noticed it before you finished your sentence. This is what psychologists describe as a heightened empathic sensitivity, but the more accurate term is aggressive empathy, not softness, not just being a good listener. It's a skill that was built from necessity, sharpened by years of having to read situations accurately because getting them wrong had real consequences. There's a concept in psychology called internal locus of evaluation, the idea that a person's emotional compass stops depending on external signals and starts navigating from the inside. For her, that shift wasn't a choice. It was a survival adaptation. She learned to trust her own read of the room because, at some point, that was the only read she could count on. And that's the thing about this particular superpower. She didn't choose it, and she can't easily turn it off, which brings us to what's quietly running in the background of her nervous system at all times. That ability to read a room so accurately, it doesn't switch off when she gets home. It doesn't power down when she's sitting at dinner with friends or trying to relax on a Sunday morning. The same system that makes her so perceptive in a crisis is running in the background constantly, scanning, checking, cataloging. This is hypervigilance, and it's one of the most exhausting things a person can carry without anyone around them even noticing. You've probably seen it in small ways without realizing what you were looking at. She needs to sit facing the door at a restaurant, not because she's rude or distracted, but because her nervous system requires a clear line of sight to feel okay. She has backup plans for her backup plans. A simple coffee date comes with contingencies you didn't know needed contingencies. She's already thought through 3 versions of how the conversation might go, and she's prepared for all of them. That's not anxiety for the sake of it. That's a nervous system that learned, at some point in her life, that safety isn't something you're just handed. It's something you construct, carefully, out of preparation and awareness, and never fully letting your guard down. And here's where it gets complicated in relationships. She will show up for you at 3 a.m. without a second thought. She'll drive across town, sit with you in silence, say exactly the right thing at exactly the right moment. Her capacity for showing up for other people is almost boundless. But ask her what she needs. Ask her how she's really doing. Start to get genuinely close to her, and she goes quiet in a different way. Suddenly, she's incredibly busy. Suddenly, she doesn't have much to say about herself. Suddenly, she's turned the conversation back to you so smoothly you don't even notice it happened. It's not that she doesn't want closeness. She does. That desire for real connection is still completely intact, maybe even more intense for everything she's been through. The problem is what happens inside her nervous system when someone actually starts to deliver it. Closeness, in her experience, has historically come attached to something. A cost, a condition, a moment where the rug gets pulled. So when someone gets genuinely close, the response isn't warmth and ease. It's bracing. Her body is preparing for the part that comes next, even when that part never actually arrives. She trained herself to need nobody, and she did it so well it started to look like independence. It looks like strength from the outside. But there's a specific kind of loneliness that lives inside that self-sufficiency, and she knows exactly what it feels like, even if she'd never say so out loud. But something else happens too, and this is the part that tends to get overlooked. Research on post-traumatic growth, specifically the work cited by psychologist Richard Tedeschi, points to something that runs counter to what most people expect. Roughly half to two-thirds of people who go through significant trauma don't just return to who they were before. They come out on the other side with something they didn't have going in: deeper relationships, a much clearer sense of what actually matters to them, an appreciation for ordinary life that hits in ways that would seem excessive to someone who hasn't earned it. For her, this can look like tearing up at a good sunset and not being remotely embarrassed about it. It looks like knowing exactly which friendships are worth her energy and which aren't, with a clarity most people spend decades trying to develop. It looks like being completely calm during a genuine crisis while simultaneously having what feels like an existential moment over which coffee mug to use. That's not a contradiction. That's a person who has recalibrated what deserves weight and what doesn't. And sometimes the recalibration is still finding its edges. She's a walking paradox, tough but tender, guarded but quietly generous, absolutely unshakable in the middle of a storm, and then genuinely undone by a piece of music that hits the wrong way on the wrong afternoon. Both things are real. Both things are her. Underneath all of this, there's something that rarely gets named, and it's the quietest part of what she carries. She isn't just managing what happened to her. She's grieving someone, the version of herself that existed before all of it, the one who trusted people more quickly, who moved through rooms without scanning them first, who laughed without checking whether it was safe to. That version felt lighter. She didn't brace before good things happened. She didn't wait for the catch. There's no clean way to explain that kind of grief to someone who hasn't felt it. It's a homesickness for a place that only ever existed inside her own mind, a softness she had before she learned she needed to protect it, a freedom she understood too late to hold on to. This grief doesn't collapse her. What it does is make her quieter, more deliberate, more precise about where she puts her energy and who she lets near her. She values peace the way only someone who paid for it actually can. She recognizes safe people with an accuracy that took years of unsafe ones to develop. Her pain became insight. Her survival became the kind of compassion that knows what it cost. And without planning any of it, without deciding to become this, she became something rare. A lighthouse. Not because her life was gentle, because she learned to navigate in the dark, and now she can't help but cast light. Women who've been through too much aren't just surviving. They're operating with a level of emotional intelligence most people never develop, and they built it without a manual, without a choice, without anyone telling them that's what was happening. Every boundary she holds, every joke she makes at her own expense, every moment where she says something so unexpectedly true it stops you mid-sentence, that's not damage, that's earned wisdom. She's still here, still showing up, still finding reasons to try. If you found this interesting, the next video goes even deeper into how the mind really works. So if you want to understand people on a completely different level, you should watch that one next.